Hello there, this is Al24 News live from Algiers. Coming up next in our World News program. President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania is on a 3-day visit to Algeria starting from today, Monday, as the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, invited him. Plus, South Africa is observing a week of mourning leading up to the Saturday funeral of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. South Africans stopped by Cape Town's St. George's Cathedral on Sunday to pay their respects to Desmond Tutu, the anti-apartheid icon who has died aged 90. Also coming up, Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed said today, Monday, he had suspended the Prime Minister's powers, escalating a de-establishment dispute in the Horn Africa country. Heavy rains and the burst of 2 dams have caused deadly floods in the northeastern city of Brazil, Bahia. And Peru has recorded more than 2 million cases of COVID-19 and more than 200,000 deaths since March 2020. With a population of 33, Peru has the highest death rates due to the epidemic in the world. As stated by a communique of the Presidency of the Republic, Mohammed Ould Sheikh Al Ghazouani, the President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, is on a 3-day visit to Algeria starting from today, Monday, as the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, invited him. The visit comes within the framework of the strengthening the bilateral relations and cooperation in the interests of the two brotherly countries. The relationship between Algeria and Mauritania is often characterized as friendly. The two nations have affirmed their determination to continue efforts to strengthen and promote bilateral cooperation, especially at the economic level, to meet the aspirations of the two brotherly peoples.
Over the course of 3 years, movements and efforts on Algerian access escalated. Discussions have made Mauritania the vital entrance to Algeria's Western African markets through economic links, with a decisive step awaiting the construction of strategic road running 900 kilometers between Algeria's Tindouf and Mauritania's Zouirat. A path on which the two countries rely on completely changing the features of the region and ending its isolation, as well as activating trade and economic exchanges between them. This would enable the activation of the Dakar Corridor initiative, which could connect Mauritania with Tunisia and Libya. Economic convergence contribute to a remarkable increase in the volume of Algerian exports to Mauritania, a 100% increase last year compared to the level recorded in 2019. Putting Algeria among the main exports of Nouakchott with a 20% share of Mauritania's African imports, valued at $9 million. It's predicted to be worth more than $53 million by the end of the year. And Algerian export operation to Mauritania registered 111 initiatives during the second trio of this year, via the land border post of the martyr Mustafa Ben Boulaid in the state of Tindouf, representing a rise of more than 130% over the first trio of the current year.
For today's the 18th Conference of Ministers of Higher Education and Scientific Research in the Arab world will be held in the Algerian capital to discuss the reality of scientific research on the horizon of 2030 under the slogan Vision and Directions. South Africa is observing a week of mourning leading up to the Saturday funeral of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. South Africans stopped by Cape Town's St. George's Cathedral on Sunday to pay their respects to Desmond Tutu, the anti-apartheid icon who has died aged 90. Zara Farjani reports.
South Africa has started a week of mourning events for anti-apartheid icon Archbishop Desmond Tutu, described as the country's moral compass, as praises poured in from across the world. Cyril Ramaphosa, President of South Africa, paid tribute to Archbishop Desmond Tutu in an on-screen address to the nation on Sunday, calling him a leader with compassion and dignity.
Like many of his time, He was a witness to the gravest injustices and most intolerable cruelty that our country has ever witnessed.
Tutu, who died on Sunday, age 90, had largely faded from public life in recent years, but was remembered for his easy humor and characteristic smile, and above all, his fight against injustices of all colors.
So his main legacy is his love for all God's people. And he believed that everyone is created in the image, and he used to add a word, beautiful image of God.
South Africans of all races stopped by the cathedral on Sunday to pay their respect.
People who are leading the movement to save our planet in this country, the young people who are speaking out against economic injustice, the young people who are speaking out about access to education. I see those leaders.
His body will lie in state for 2 days before his funeral is held on January 1st at Cape Town's St. George's Cathedral, his former parish.
Always with the same story, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate who helped end apartheid in South Africa, has died at the age of 90, and he has helped bequeath a liberated South Africa. Archbishop Desmond Tutu in this portrait by Sid Islam.
Dear friends, I send you my very warm greetings. I've been associated with Civicus since its inception over 15 years ago.
Sunday marked the death of the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, racial justice and rights activist and retired Cape Town honorary Bishop Desmond Tutu at the age of 90. As an uncompromising enemy of apartheid, brutal oppression of South Africa's black majority, Tutu, though non-violently, made tireless efforts to collapse it. A lively and sincere minister, used his lectern as the first black bishop of Johannesburg and later as the Archbishop of Cape Town, with frequent public demonstrations and public opinion on racial inequality at home and around the world.
Tutu's death on Sunday is another chapter of bereavement in our nation's farewell to a generation of outstanding South Africans who have bequeathed us a liberated South Africa. From the pavements of resistance in South Africa to the pulpits of the world's great cathedrals and places of worship, and the prestigious settings of the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony, the Arch distinguished himself as a non-sectarian, inclusive champion of universal human rights.
Since being diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1997, for the past few years, he and his wife Leah lived in an elderly community on the outskirts of Cape Town. He was one of the most prominent blacks against abuse in the 1980s, when South Africa was captured by anti-apartheid violence and a state of emergency giving police and the military widespread power. Lively jokes softened Tutu's harsh message, otherwise warmed harsh protests, funerals, and marches. The 1984 Nobel Peace Prize underscores his position as one of the strongest advocates of human rights in the world. This is the responsibility he has taken seriously throughout his life. The Nelson Mandela Foundation said that Tutu was an extraordinary human being. He was a key ally to Mandela in the fight against apartheid and chaired the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in the post-apartheid era. With the end of the apartheid in 1994, and the first democratic elections in South Africa, Tutu celebrated the country's multi-ethnic society and called it the land of the rainbow.
Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed said today Monday he had suspended the Prime Minister's powers, escalating a de-establishing dispute in the Horn of the Africa country. The President, who had suspended Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble before over an earlier confrontation, said in a statement he had taken the action pending an investigation of accusations the Prime Minister had acquired land fraudulently. Zionist entity cabinet voted in favor of the plan that aims to build 7,500 settler homes in the region over a 5-year period. It calls for 1 billion Zionist shekels to be spent on housing, infrastructure and other projects with the goal of attracting roughly 23,000 new Jewish settlers to the area seized during the 1967 Six-Day War. Hundreds of Palestinians clashed with Zionist troops near an illegal settlement base in the northern West Bank amid rising violence in the area following a deadly terror shooting. The Zionist troops attacked the Palestinians protesting a shutdown imposed by the forces on the entrance to the village of Burqa in the area. Marwa Belawi reports.
Over 200 Palestinian protesters were injured when Zionist forces fired live and rubber-coated bullets in the northern occupied West Bank. The Zionists also deployed stun grenades and tear gas containers to disperse the Palestinians. As a result, a total of 247 Palestinians were injured. 8 were injured by live bullets and 35 by rubber-coated bullets during the protests in Burqa village because of calls by Zionist colonists to march the Homs settlement near Nablus, which was evacuated in 2005. According to the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, at least 10 people among the protesters were hit by live fire from Zionists in the village of Burqa. Also, Palestine's health ministry said that a 17-year-old boy was seriously wounded and taken to the hospital in Nablus. Zionist troops reinforced its presence and sealed off the region in the Nablus-Jenin road to give a safe passage for about 1,000 Zionist colonists to march in the village, triggering protesters from Palestinian residents. The Zionist entity occupied the West Bank and the Gaza Strip during the Six-Day War in 1967. It later had to withdraw from Gaza but began enforcing an all-out blockade on the territory. The international law views the West Bank and the Gaza Strip as occupied territories and considers all Zionist settlements there as illegal.
Heavy rains and the burst of 2 dams have caused deadly floods in the northeastern city of Brazil, Bahia. The floods destroyed most of public property, including houses, roads and bridges, which forced thousands of citizens to be displaced from their own homes. Ayedi Usama reports.
Heavy rains and floods killed at least 18 people and wounded 286 others in the northeastern city Bahia in Brazil. Floods invaded the streets of the city and destroyed many public facilities after the downpour, which started as early as the beginning of November. 2 dams gave way after being pummeled with the heavy rains. Brazilian authorities issued warnings of flash floods. According to the civil protection agency SUDAC active in the northeastern state of Bahia, the floods imposed displacement on at least 35,000 citizens, and 16,000 people were obliged to seek shelter, as well as 19,600 have been displaced to different areas after their houses were destroyed. According to Bahia's state government, the flooding affected at least 72 cities, causing damage of infrastructure since the beginning of the heavy rains that hit the region. According to statements of Mayor Sheila Lemos, all residents near Igua Dam have been displaced to safer camps. Federal and state authorities have joined forces to help cope with the floods. Equipment and aircraft along with supplies have been made available for the affected residents as many rescue forces are still working to get people in the flooded areas off the tops of their houses.
Many affected areas in the typhoon in the Philippines may not have power until February 2022. Brazilian Department Energy Director announced that the estimated timeline for the Megtan Electric Company MECO service areas will take between 2 to 8 weeks, depending on the affected area. The typhoon hit the country nearly 2 weeks ago and left at least 389 people killed, 1,146 injured, while 64 people remain missing. In Iraq, the bodies of 16 Kurdish Iraqis, migrants and refugees who drowned when their boat deflated while they tried to cross the English Channel last month have been repatriated to Iraq. On Sunday, an aeroplane carrying the bodies landed to the international airport in Erbil, the capital of Iraq's autonomous Kurdish region. Dozens of people have been killed in attack by armed groups in the Burkina Faso troubled north. The government announced that 41 people have died in the attack that took place on Thursday. In a statement released late on Saturday, the government said that the dead included members of a government-backed civilian self-defense force known as the Volunteers for the Defense of the Motherland, set up to support the army. New South Wales health authorities reported today, Monday, the first death linked to Omicron variant of COVID-19 as infections sour across Australia. The man was fully vaccinated, aged in his 80s with underlying health problems and a resident of an aged care facility in the state, where 6,324 new cases were announced Monday. Cases are on the rise in Australia, although this is due in part to greater testing required by regional authorities for interstate travellers. More than 400 people were mistakenly tested negative while actually being positive on Christmas. SIDPATH Medical Director Professor apologized for incorrectly messaging the 400 patients about the false results. Miriam Ziani reports.
After giving 400 people wrong COVID-19 test results on Christmas Day, SIDPATH Medical Director Professor Anthony Dodds apologized in a statement and said that the people who were tested negative were actually positive.
The volume of tests that we've been contending with at SIDPATH. Last night we incorrectly messaged 400 patients who had been swabbed at our centres from December the 22nd and December the 23rd. An emergency response team is now investigating the cause of this mistake, which is believed to be due to human error.
St. Vincent's Hospital's spokesperson said that everyone impacted by the mistake was contacted via text Sunday afternoon, and the team is now investigating the incident. The incident comes after New South Wales recorded 6,394 COVID-19 cases, with 458 patients hospitalised and 52 patients in intensive care units. New South Wales Health Minister Brad Hazzard urged people to get vaccinated and said that everyone will get Omicron at some point at a press conference.
Bottom line here is that we would expect that pretty well everybody in New South Wales at some point will get Omicron. We're all going to get Omicron. And if we're all going to get Omicron, the best way to face it is when we have full vaccination, including our booster. The challenge for us in the state is to make sure that our health system can cope with that oncoming virus that is so transmissible. It's extremely transmissible.
The minister said that the majority of patients in intensive care units were unvaccinated, and the New South Wales government urged people to be aware of the new strain of coronavirus and not to be in contact unless necessary.
And South Korea authorized for emergency use Pfizer's antiviral pills targeting COVID-19 as the first of its kind to be introduced in South Korea. The Ministry of Food and Drug Safety said on Monday South Korea restored tough distancing curbs last week after easing them in November. After a series of record daily new infections and serious cases touched medical services, despite a vaccination rate of over 92% for those aged 18 or older. Major U.S. airlines cancelled hundreds more flights Sunday, the third day in a row of mass cancellations and delays over Christmas weekend, as staff and crew called out sick amid the Omicron surge. More than 1,200 U.S. flights were cancelled and more than 5,000 were delayed Sunday, according to FlightAware. Globally, there were over 2,000 cancellations. Delta and JetBlue each saw over 100 cancellations Sunday. Peru has recorded more than 2 million cases of COVID-19 and more than 200,000 deaths since March 2020. With a population of 33 million, Peru has the highest death rate due to the epidemic in the world. Hussein Berkan reports.
Nearly 10,000 kids are left without parents in Peru due to COVID-19. According to Hernando Ceballos, Health Minister of Peru, the number of people with this Omicron mutant rose from 49 to 71 in the national territory.
A few minutes ago, I was informed by the National Health Institute. We have reached 71 Omicron infections in the country. 3 of them are from Piura region, not specifically from Sullana. So it is likely that we have more cases of Omicron. As you know, the contagious of Omicron variant is several times, 4 times, 5 times more than the variant we have had. So you have to have all precautionary measures. Now I am communicating with the Regional Director of Health, so they make all the necessary measures available. to prevent this from spreading further in Piara region.
The health minister also announced the Peruvian government intention to purchase 55 million vaccine against COVID-19 in 2022 to give a fourth dose to health personnel and vulnerable groups in society. Daily infections doubled in Peru last month, reaching 15,000, while deaths rose to 50 per day. The South American country banned family gatherings and the celebration of Christmas and imposed a curfew between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. With these measures, Peru hopes to reduce the spread of the Omicron mutant. With a population of 33 million, Peru has the highest death rate due to the epidemic in the world at 6,122 per million.
Iran has announced that it has closed all its land and sea borders to non-Iranians for 15 days, but air travel is still ongoing except from 8 African countries and 4 European ones, namely England, France, Norway and Denmark. Head of Iran's Roads and Transportation Organization, Javad Hidayati, said on Sunday that Iranian passengers can cross the borders with their vaccine cards and a negative PCR test. Protesters have gathered around the highly fortified Green Zone in Baghdad as Iraq's highest judiciary is expected to rule out election appeals and ratify the election results. Following the announcement of the preliminary elections results, supporters of the Hashd al-Sha'bi have been holding sit-ins close to Baghdad's Green Zone to protest those election results. In the parliamentary elections held in October, their parties lost more than half the seats they had previously won in the 2018 elections. They have since claimed the results as fraudulent. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said on Sunday he will soon visit Iran to finalize new agreements on cooperation with the Middle Eastern country, which has become Venezuela's top ally in boosting oil output amid U.S. sanctions. Venezuela and Iran have strengthened their ties since last year. A United Nations official said he was horrified by reports that at least 35 civilians have been killed and their bodies burnt in eastern Myanmar and urged the government to start an in-depth and transparent probe. And Myanmar military denied the accusations, adding that the information is falsified by anti-government groups. Miriam Zian reports.
According to a statement by the UN Humanitarian Affairs Chief, Martin Griffiths, civilians were killed in Myanmar. The chief wrote on Twitter, I cite, I am horrified by reports that 35 civilians were killed in Kaya State, #Myanmar, on 24 December. 2 Save Children humanitarian workers also remain missing. I condemn all attacks against civilians and call on authorities to investigate. Mr. Griffiths also called on the Myanmar army to take all measures to protect civilians from harm and confirmed that millions of people in Myanmar remain in dire need of humanitarian support. The United States Embassy in Myanmar also tweeted, We are appalled by this barbaric attack in Kaya State that killed at least 35 civilians, including women and children. We will continue to press for accountability for the perpetrators of the ongoing campaign of violence against the people of Burma. #What's happening in Myanmar. However, Myanmar military denied reports of attacks against civilians in border state. And as announced in the official newspaper Global New Light of the Myanmar's junta's Foreign Affairs Ministry, the unobjective information comes from anti-government elements, terrorists and insurgent groups.
A satellite of a private U.S. company has captured images that reveal Russia has continued to reinforce its forces in Crimea near Ukraine in recent weeks as it continues to pressure the United States to talk about its security guarantees. NATO announced that its Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg called for a session of the Russia-NATO Council on January the 12th. This meeting, if held, will coincide with the meeting of the NATO Military Committee at the level of the Chief of Staff in Brussels. Russia had proposed earlier this month to the United States and NATO to sign 2 agreements to establish a system of security guarantees in order to ease military tensions in Europe. Algeria's steps are accelerating in increasing its export volumes regardless petrol industry. There are numerous initiatives to reflect the country's quest to expand its presence in the African markets. In Tamanrasset, Algerian aims are reflected in the detection of the first logistics base specializing in land and air exports to the African neighboring area.
Concerning the project, it is a very important move to refresh the country's economy and help creating job opportunities and develop this area in terms of investments. This logistic base will be a reinforcement to boost exports towards Africa, and it will be the front gate which can facilitate all the administrative procedures of exports in the region. There are other programs to be launched in the future, in which we are seeking to develop the field of transport in the area. We are studying the file of opening a long railways line to Tamanrasset to facilitate transportation.
A speaker of English or any of the dominant languages is highly able to benefit from lots of digital tools technology offers, but an African native of Yoruba, Igbo, or even Swahili will find glitches that can hinder access to information, trade, personal communications, customer service, and other benefits of the global tech economy. This is simply because technology does not understand a number of widely spoken African languages. Nabil Khazini reports.
In today's world, a speaker of English or any of the dominant languages is highly able to benefit from lots of digital tools technology offers. But an African native of Yoruba, Igbo, or even Swahili will find glitches that can hinder access to information, trade, personal communications, customer service, and other benefits of the global tech economy. This is simply because technology does not understand a number of widely spoken African languages.
We are getting to the point where if a machine doesn't understand your language, it will be like it never existed.
Tech giants offer their product in numerous languages, but they don't always pay attention to minority languages. Part of the problem is that there is just not enough online data in those languages, including scientific and medical terms. Another part of the problem is that tech giants focus more on promoting their products only inside the wealthiest markets.
In Africa, we are not the main target market for these big tech companies. The companies like Google, Amazon, Apple have really concentrated in maintaining to serve their key business sectors, or I would say their biggest clients.
Google and Microsoft are among the companies that they say they are trying to improve technology for the so-called low-resource languages that artificial intelligence systems don't have enough data for. Meta, the company formerly known as Facebook, announced in November a project of universal translator that could translate multiple languages at once and work better with languages such as Icelandic or Hausa.
And this morning, the players of the Algerian national football team flew to the Qatari capital Doha in order to start preparations for the finals of the African Nations Cup, which is expected to be held in Cameroon starting from the 9th of January. And finally, Salah Bey Aboud, the man in charge of the information and communication in the Algerian Football Federation, spoke about the planned program and the date of the arrival of the Greens to the Cameroon. Let's have a listen.
Regarding this trip, as we talked about it before, it is made up for the training staffs as well as the medical one, and some players who were here in Algeria, as well as the player Islam Slimani, who came from his club Olympique Lyon yesterday. We are going to France, where the rest of the players will join us there, and from this place we will go to Doha. After the friendly match that we will play against Ghana, we will head directly to Cameroon on January 6th. We are only going for the crown. The Algerian players' mentality has changed, and we are not aspiring for anything other than winning and being crowned. Our matches unbeaten are 33 matches, and we will try to continue the path in the upcoming matches. The Algerian Federation respects the laws of FIFA and the requirements of its professional players' clubs, such as Riyad Mahrez and Saïd Barrahma.
That's all for me and the rest of the team. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.